Nearly 2,000 dead in Venezuela. Vladimir Putin is running out of fuel, and Israel just made history. Welcome to Voices with Anissa. It's your Wednesday Global News Hub. Did you know that Venezuela sits on the Caribbean South American tectonic plate boundary, one of the most seismically active regions in the Western Hemisphere, and has now experienced an earthquake of this magnitude in over a century? The last time Venezuela was hit by an earthquake this powerful was in 1900. When it happened then, the country had no modern buildings, no international rescue teams, no satellite imaging, no social media to coordinate survivors. Now, last Wednesday, the 24th, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck Venezuela's northern coast. Seconds later, a 7.5 hit the exact same region. The confirmed death toll has violently surged, with international aid groups reporting at least 1,719 fatalities and thousands remaining missing in the field, and UN health networks are preparing for the worst of the full scale of the disaster becomes clear. And under the rubble, people are still being pulled out alive, babies, elders. So having a powerful two earthquakes hit in over 125 years struck the coast of Venezuela. It has shot down walls, shattered some critical infrastructures, and sent residents racing into open streets around Caracas and Carabobo and Uruguay. The verified death toll is climbing. The local rescue coordinators warn the final number is going to be cornering near a milestone of thousands more. International rescue operations have developed across the hardest hit coastal zones. Over 600 continuous aftershocks have rattled the fault line, causing further collapse in already compromised buildings and creating higher fatality environment for search and rescue personnel. And worse yet, the local population faces a severely restricted information landscape, with over 200 websites, local news portals, and communication networks heavily disrupted or blocked by regional security measures, leaving families entirely cut off the information regarding missing loved ones. This national disaster hits a nation already navigating profound, long-standing economic and public infrastructure challenges. This is the unvarnished reality of Venezuela right now. If you have not subscribed, share this episode across your platforms. The world needs to keep an eye on what's happening beneath the rubbles in Venezuela. Then we have a geopolitical bottleneck that directly impacts global energy support chains and tests the fragile international diplomacy surrounding the Middle East. Now, the international maritime shipping lanes in the Gulf have entered a dangerous new phase again. Over the weekend, the United Nations Maritime Agency, the International Maritime Organization, announced that it had successfully, evacuated 2,500 stranded seafarers from the Persian Gulf who had been trapped aboard commercial vessels since the regional conflict erupted. However, the entire rescue operation has been abruptly frozen and suspended after a major commercial container ship, the Ever Lovely, was struck by an explosive projectile off the ocean of Oman. Now, the underlying tactical context you need to know is that to bypass the central Strait of Hormuz, where international shipping has choked off and heavily threatened, the United States, Oman, and the UNME established an alternate southern shipping corridor. This route allows commercial vessels and tankers to hug the coastlines of Oman, moving cargoes outside of the direct Iranian maritime intervention point. Tehran viewed this alternative route as a direct challenge to the strategic leverage over the world's most vital maritime choke points. Prior to the drone and projectile strike, Iranian officials issued a strict public warning demanding the vessels cease utilizing any corridors not explicitly authorized by Tehran. So the drone strike on the alternative route has cast a dark shadow over recent high-profile ceasefire talks and diplomatic handshakes negotiated in Switzerland. Commercial tankers are now reversing course in real time, refusing to enter the Omani corridor. Global supply chains are watching. Energy markets are on the edge, and thousands of seafarers remain stranded, waiting to see who will ultimately control this safe passage through the waters. Now, Vladimir Putin admits Ukraine is winning the fuel war, right? It's the first time that the outbreak of the long-range drone warfare, the president has publicly explicitly acknowledged on the state television that Ukrainian drone strikes are targeting domestic oil refineries have created a fuel shortage inside the country. Putin admitted that Ukraine targeted campaigns against Russian energy infrastructure has created a obvious problem and a domestic fuel deficit. This official admission comes as a severe wave of long-range Ukrainian drones successfully struck yet another major southern Russian oil refinery over the weekend, lighting setting the facility ablaze. Energy analysts report that Ukrainian systematic aerial campaign has successfully knocked out nearly a quarter of Russia's domestic oil refining capacity, leading to 15% supply shortfall. And in the Mediterranean theater, a historic diplomatic pivot occurred this week that permanently realized, you can say, regional alignments. The Israeli cabinet unanimously approved an official proposal brought forth by Foreign Prime Minister Gideon Saar to formally designate the mass killing and the deportations of Armenians by the Ottoman Empire during the World War I as a genocide. Sounds a bit contradictory if you ask me, or hypocritical. For decades, successive Israeli government fiercely recognized the Armenian genocide. This resistance was entirely a matter of strategic diplomacy designed to protect Israeli relationship with Turkey, a major NATO member and historically vital regional partner. However, geopolitical ties between Iran and Turkey have completely collapsed. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan has emerged as one of the most virulent critics of Israeli military campaigns, cutting off bilateral trade and utilizing international forums to accuse Israeli leadership of war crimes. Now, while the Prime Minister publicly cited this, moral and historical duty, note act of direct retaliation. International analysts note that the timing is entirely calculated. It's not really genuine. Now, let's connect the dots across everything we covered today. Venezuela has not experienced this earthquake in about 100 plus years, 125 years, and here's one of the century. How can a country progress when they're just being hit left, right, and center along the global simultaneously? Patterns are identical. The system meant to guarantee international stability are fracturing. Iran attacks an alternate maritime corridor specifically built to bypass its chokehold, keeping global energy flows hostage. Vladimir Putin is forced to publicly admit that his domestic infrastructure is buckling under long-range drones, and Israel uses a century of historical human tragedy to send a calculated geopolitical warning to Turkey, right? So let me ask you a question. What do we owe the people trapped under the rubble of a disaster made fundamentally worse by poverty, compromised infrastructure, and political neglect? And what do we owe them beyond the 72-hour rescue window when the international cameras turn away and the years of painful recovery begins? Share this episode with someone who refuses to be blinded by mainstream media narrative. Drop your thoughts in the comment below. Tell me which story you're carrying with you tonight. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join us on every Wednesday for new international truth. I leave in the careful subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.